are.
Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma. Welcome to you here in the building, to those on Zoom, and to those on YouTube. Tom, can I get you to light the chalice? Lighting a chalice at this hour in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries. Many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. Announcements. Rick.
The Wednesday night group is gathering at 7:15 here, and also on Zoom. We're really enjoying the book. It's a collection of short essays by the same author, whose name I can't remember.
Peter Singer.
Yeah, Peter Singer. What's the name of the book? Ethics in the Real World, I believe is what it is.
Interesting.
And it's going to be very widely varied. Everything from, I don't know, current politics. This is a second edition, so it's very current. It's very appropriate for what we're experiencing now. So we invite anyone and everyone on Zoom, or come on in. We're having great snacks. Thanks to Annie. Chuck puts up the link. Chuck is really moderating it, keeping it together, and Annie is feeding us. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable spread. So y'all come.
For dinner, huh?
For dinner, right. You don't have to eat before you go. It's right after Zen, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes. So
right.
Come for both.
Sounds great. The grief recovery group started last week, and we will be meeting for 9 weeks. And we have a nice little group. I'm really glad that it made. I think it's going to make a difference in our lives.
We did the reading writing group at the same time worked well.
Yeah.
So y'all met here.
Right.
There by the fireplace.
It was nice to have 2 groups meeting in the building.
Yeah.
That was nice. If you want to donate to the church, please send a check to UU Church of Tullahoma, P.O. Box 333, Tullahoma, Tennessee. And
Jim's got his hand up.
yes, Jim.
Yeah, a couple of announcements. So we'll have a board meeting next Sunday. It's the third Sunday, so it's the regularly scheduled board meeting. Also, I believe PFLAG will be meeting tomorrow night, the second Monday of the month.
Thank you.
Yes. So those 2 announcements I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have an announcement? Okay, going on. This morning I want to welcome Stan Bumgarner again. It's really nice to have you coming regularly, fairly regularly, whatever. And I look forward to it. Thank you, Stan.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, glad you're here. I had to send a hurried text to Carrie to say I was running just a little bit behind. And I've gotten so used to Waze, putting in the address, and then it tells me when I'm going to be there. And then you have that decision of, do I take the one that's going to take 24 minutes? Do I need to get this a little bit higher?
Yeah.
Whoop.
Oops, it's fixable.
Yeah. There we go.
I can adjust it for you.
Yeah, that's
Or-
good.
Good. Okay. Anyway, that idea of, do I take this route that'll get me there in 24 minutes, or this one that's 22, and I know this one, but I've never tried that one, and so here I am. But I took the one that popped me out in Tullahoma further down, and I usually don't come in that way. And I looked on the right, and there was a little one of those Frysat signs, out in front of a place. And it said, "A life without acupuncture is pointless."
I would say so.
And so I figured I'd share that with you because it's kind of related to what I'd like to talk about this morning. So many of you know that I was a spiritual director at Cumberland Heights for years. And so in that capacity, I was asked to deliver Sunday services. And because we would have atheists and agnostics and uncommitteds and undesires and very Christian people, it was always my task to kind of craft a message that would, in the end, not offend anyone, but also inspire everyone. That was the hope as people were in their early recovery and getting started. And this particular talk I've done many times before because it's absolutely one of my favorite little passages in the Bible. And it has to do with the story of the rich young man. And I'm just going to ask you, how many of y'all are familiar with this from that part of the Bible? Okay. Most of us have heard of it. But the reason I particularly like it is biblical scholars tend to think for sure this happened, because it shows up in all the synoptic gospels, and the story is fairly similar in every account. So when you see that, there's a likelihood, yeah, this is something that actually happened, and it wasn't based on the interpretation of that gospel writer. But the way the story goes, and I think it can be helpful if you put yourself into this place, okay? So just for a moment, instead of sitting here in Tullahoma, I'm going to ask you to transport yourself back in time to a very hot, dusty, sandy place in the Middle East, Israel, that had been under Roman oppression for a long, long time, generations. And there had been some discussion, some talk about this man from Nazareth who was here to change things. He was the Messiah. He's the one we've been waiting on, that warrior king that's going to finally get rid of these Romans. Now we're all standing on the side of the road in that heat and that grit, probably in our sandals, and there's probably grit in our feet, and it's hot, and we're all standing there waiting for this man, Jesus, to come walking up the road, because we've heard all about this stuff. We've heard about these miracles, and oh my gosh, finally, there's someone here. And of course, we want to see him. And they're both sides of the road. We're kind of leaning out like we're waiting on the parade. We're waiting. I think they're getting closer. I think they're coming now. And all of us are anticipating it. And here comes Jesus and the disciples. Now, I think it's really important to note that just before this particular passage in the Bible, there's another passage, and I shared this with you just a couple weeks ago, where Jesus is resting, and some little kids want to come see him. They're as curious as we are. They're hearing their parents talk about this guy, and so they want to see what it's all about. And so the little kids are trying to look back there and see who this man is, and And the disciples act like his entourage and say, no, I'm sorry, he's busy right now, he's resting, you'll have to come back another time. And they won't let the little children see him. And then Jesus hears what's going on and he goes, whoa, 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 let the little children come see me. Because I tell you, if you don't have the mind of a child, you will not understand what I'm saying. To me, that's always meant you have to let go of all the things you think are facts. You have to let go of all the things you've believed for so long to hear what I'm saying, or it's not going to make sense. We have to be childlike in our understanding and our trust and our wonder of this. So that's what happens in all four of the Gospels. Just before this rich young man story happens, you hear this story. So now, back to us standing on the side of the road. So here he comes. And he's getting closer and closer, and there's a little kind of dust, kind of flicked up on the road, and he's getting closer and closer. And I don't know if you've ever stood in line to meet someone that's like famous, or you get kind of nervous. What am I going to say if they... And so I imagine that a lot of the people have felt that. So they're looking out, and here he is. And you're just kind of trying to take this all in. He looks normal. He looks like one of us. What's so special about this person's all the thoughts that you're going through your head. And all of a sudden, from your right, a person that you didn't notice leans in. And you remember those commercials for Grey Poupon? Years ago?
Yeah.
I always imagined he sounds like that. He goes, pardon me, but what is the secret to eternal life? And everybody's like, whoa, where'd he come from? And you look over and see him for the first time, and he doesn't look like the rest of us. I always imagine he's got on deluxe clothing. His hair is coiffed. Probably has a little cologne. Pardon me. What's the secret to eternal life? We all step back to see what Jesus says. And Jesus says, love your neighbor like yourself. What do you think it is? Love your neighbor like yourself. And that wasn't enough for the rich young man. Because with all of his privilege, with all of his wealth, with all of everything he had, that wasn't sufficient. He leans in again and he goes, in essence, I know that's what you tell everyone else, but what do I do for eternal life? What do I need to do to keep going here? And Jesus says, if you want to be perfect, like our Father in heaven, he says, go sell everything you own, give the money to the poor, and come back and join me. And the rich young man goes, let me get back to you on that. And turns around and walks off. And they say he walked off crying. And then we get that great quote. Jesus looks at the rest of us. He's kind of going, this guy? It's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. I happen to think that story is not about money. Because the one thing each of us in this room, anybody that I could be doing this with, values more than anything else is what I believe to be true. My belief system, the things that I know for a fact are true, don't try to change my mind. And for the rich young man, that sense of what he knew to be true is this is me and that's y'all, and I like this and I don't think I want to change it. And there might have been some privilege involved for him and he didn't want to lose, but the idea is he could no more have the mind of a child and learn something new than a man in the moon or a camel going through the eye of a needle. And that, to me, is the real power of this story. Now I've wondered, we're all still standing there, and the rich young man's walked off, and it's almost like a gun is going off. Pow! Remember how quiet it gets in that moment? It's like you hear that, and then it's just still and quiet. And the rest of us are thinking, what just happened? And we're kind of looking at each other. And I've wondered if I was standing there and Jesus had looked at me with those intense brown eyes and said, what about you? Are you in? Are you in? I know what I've thought about this so many times. I know what I would say. I would say, can I sell half of my stuff? And keep the other half in storage in case this doesn't work out? Because it's really hard for any of us to let go of the things that we cherish so much. It's so very hard to have my paradigm rocked. And yet that's the essence of this story. The question is, are you in or are you out? And I used to ask those people at Cumberland Heights, those patients, I'd go, you know, you can't be in this world, the one that's so destructive right now, so maladaptive, and want to be in this world of recovery and health and promise. You can't be in both at one time. Because you're either working on your recovery or you're staying in your disease. Right? And that's what it's like for us. Even though we're not dealing with that kind of issue, the question might be, do I want to stay in this job that I hate? Or do I want to move forward and get out of it and feel fulfilled? What do I do in this relationship that's just crushing my spirit? I need to get out of here. But it's scary and I don't know if I can do that. But it's also, I've always wanted to paint. I've always wanted to write poetry. There's a songwriter in here. But until I come over here, it likely isn't going to happen, is it? So whatever your thing is, and every one of us have one, it could be a new house, a new job, a trip that you've always wanted to take, a language you always wanted to learn, some risk that you've always sat back on and felt that deep. What about you? Are you in? So that's my message this morning. Life without acupuncture is pointless. A life stuck here is painful and pointless. Whatever it is that you've been dreaming about or thinking about, let this morning, in that message of the rich young man, that thing that we're called to do, let us get out of our own way and be called to it. Let the Spirit of the universe, the divine Spirit, move through each of us. Let us manifest who we're intended to be.
done gone to Medley.
Well said.
I have another joy that I forgot about. Tuesday night, I will be teaching a clay hand building class in McMinnville. It has been, I know, at least 20 years since I've touched clay. And I'm so excited about it.
I was in your class and made that,
That's right.
that sun out there,
Yep.
first and
Bill
last
was in
thing.
my last class.
Last thing I did.
I did a class at the Recreation Department of Manchester in the winter in a house that didn't have any heat. Remember that little house? Anyway, Rick.
Give us some details on this.
Well, the class is already filled,
Okay.
which just blew my mind. It was filled like in one day.
Great.
How many people know about hand building in clay? But I'm excited. I had a studio one time and had all the equipment needed, and it was wonderful. My dear husband provided that for me. Anyway, getting my hands dirty Tuesday night. So let's close with our hymn on 414, and stand as you are willing and able. As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return. Okay, let's get back together. Let's go ahead and wait till 11 o'clock to get back together and have a long coffee break this morning.
Anybody who wants to go to lunch, just